Welcome, Roast Nation. It is another Prime Roast, and I'm here with Angie, Wong. We're going to have some fun today because Donald Trump had a lot of fun with the South African president, Cyril Ramaphosa, at the White House. Boy, he's been chomping at the bit to talk to that guy, hasn't he?
Yeah, what is going on in the Oval Office? It seems like it's like the new roast room. Maybe we should be recording Prime Roast from the Oval Office because that's exactly what Trump has been doing with all the world leaders he's been inviting over.
I get a little worried he might be roasting us after that. You know, talk about my large nose, and then we'll just go downhill from there. You'll be okay. I'm just going to be the one that gets roasted.
Yeah, he's always been a gentleman with me, but I'm sure he'll find something because it's entertainment for him. But hey, before we get started, I want to bring on a very, very special guest that we have on today who's joining us, and that is Dudley Brown. He is the president and founder of the Rocky Mountain Gun Owners Association, as well as the second largest gun rights group, which is the National Associations for Gun Rights. Thank you so much, Mr. Brown, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to meet you too.
Yeah, no, we got a lot to get into, especially what we were just discussing over at the White House and Donald Trump. I don't know. All of this is like, I'm trying to figure out what the plan was there. Like, invite the guy over, fly over from South Africa, just to kind of like talk to him about, all the various things that's been going on over there. Like, what is the goal, honestly? Like, is it to do more trade? What was the purpose of that trip?
There are a lot of reasons for that, and the main reason is he's pretty much touring a lot of these nations in the Middle East, Africa, and around. Some of them are productive nations, like oil producing nations, and of course, rare earth producing nations, mineral producing nations. And he also wanted to bring this guy in to tell him, hey, we don't like what's going on. Can you do something about it? No, actually, go do something about it. I believe that's important. Somebody has to confront somebody else or all these other people, these other leaders who are allowing things like again, I'm going to say it, the ethnic cleansing, if you will, or the attempted ethnic cleansing of white farmers in South Africa.
And I think part of it is he's got to reset the table that both, 2 terms under Barack Obama and 1 term under Joe Biden have ruined, and so he's certainly being forceful. I think you're right. He's bringing these leaders in and kind of roasting them and trying to get them in negotiating positions, and there's a little bit of posturing, or more than a little, which is normal. You expect it. He's pretty good at that. So.
Well, let's watch what happened here in the Oval Office earlier this week. And yes, he did the same thing with Zelensky. He did the same thing. The idea is, I like the idea that he does this in front of reporters to show people, hey, this is real. I'm being transparent here. So let's watch this.
Mr. President, what will it take for you to be convinced that there's no white genocide in South Africa?
By the way, that's a loaded question. As a longtime broadcast journalist, this woman just told the president there's no genocide without any real evidence that there's none.
Well, I can answer that for the president.
He's going to answer it for the president now. Look at Donald Trump. All right, whatever you want to do.
But no, seriously, I'd rather have him answer.
Our president will respond to you.
By the way, notice that Cyril Ramaphosa is dressed like Donald Trump.
No, he's not.
Yes, he has got the red tie, the black suit. Yes, he's dressed like Donald Trump.
That's the political dress. It's all Brooks Brothers, right?
Just something I noticed that is he did the red tie, and I'm sure he did that for a reason. Yeah, but he does look good in the red tie.
It will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans, some of whom are his good friends, like those who are here. When we have talks between us around a quiet table, it will take President Trump to listen to them. I'm not going to be repeating what I've been saying. I would say if there was Afrikaner farmer genocide, I can bet you these 3 gentlemen would not be here, including my Minister of Agriculture. He would not be with me.
Trump
so
it
will take him,
to
President Trump, listening to their stories, to their perspective. That is the answer to your question.
But, Mr. President, I must say that we have, wait.
Here it
We have
comes.
thousands of stories talking about it. And we have documentaries, we have news stories. And that, is Natalie here, somebody here to turn that? I could show you a couple of things. And it has to be responded to.
Yeah, sure.
Let me see the articles, please, if you would. And turn the lights down. Turn the lights
He's
down
doing it.
and just put this on. It's right
Look at
behind
the
you.
big smile on Ramaphosa's
Yeah.
face.
Turn the
though.
lights
It's like he's-
down. Fire that guy.
With or without you, people are going to occupy land.
Love it.
We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't
Just
care.
chaos.
You can do whatever you want
Yep.
to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? We are going to occupy land. South Africa occupy land. That's who we are. Whatever we want to do, what can we do?
And look at Ramaphosa. He's smiling. He's like, it's almost like he's enjoying watching this. Like, I'm just going to tell him it's not happening here, but it is.
Why does chaos always follow Trump?
Yeah, well, he thrives in chaos.
He
Fair
does.
enough.
He really
He
does.
is a
It's
chaos
tactic.
agent, and I won't say it's 5D chess. I don't actually believe that, but that is personally who he is, and he is not the president who sits down with a folder and intel and reads through the briefs. I don't actually believe he does read. I believe he listens and talks to people, and he's a New York real estate mogul. I mean, those guys, talk and your standard Brooklyn speak and make deals, right? So it's totally different than any president we've ever had. There's no question.
There's nothing wrong with it. Maybe we need an agent of chaos somewhere along the line, but somebody had to confront this guy because the Western media sure was not doing its job for the last 20 plus years. They didn't do a thing. As a matter of fact, they covered it up. It was almost like a long list of Walter Durantes. We're trying to make the South African communist government, yes, look absolutely fantastic and everything's going fine. That's why nobody talks about the high crime rate. Nobody talks about it being the carjacking capital of the world. I can't say there are bad things that happen to infants that have gone, the numbers have gone up with that since the African National Communist Congress took over. And again, you can't use the actual word.
Freudian slip,
flag,
by the way.
right there. But you see where we're going, right? But somebody had to say something. The funny thing is, the government here, and we've seen videos of this, they sing, the leaders sing, kill the Boer, kill the white farmer. This president laughs everything off, saying, no, it's not happening. Don't worry, it's not. This is government-sponsored terrorism of white farmers. They need to come here to seek asylum. Some of them already have. And by the way, Dudley, you run one of the largest Second Amendment advocate groups in the nation. This is the very reason America has a Second Amendment, to defend itself and for people to defend themselves from a tyrannical or a potentially
It's
tyrannical
against
government.
tyranny, and I like to say that it is not given by government; it is only recognized by government in the Second Amendment, and but it's actually a God-given right. So when people say, "Oh, I just care about Second Amendment rights of Americans," I'm like, well, actually, it's a God-given right, so you should care about it all across the planet. Now, of course, we should focus on our own country first, but in this case, Donald Trump isn't doing America first right here. He's actually interested in tyranny that is really against human rights, and he should be. I think America should stand against that. I'm not a isolationist. I think we should set some standards and not deal with countries or push countries into respecting human rights. And again, it's a God-given right that only the Second Amendment recognizes. Last summer, when I was representing the organization at the Arms Trade Treaty of the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, I gave a couple of speeches, one of which all I talked about was it being a God-given right, and that government should not have the monopoly on possessing the tools for defense of personal defense, of the defense of their country, really. And that is not well received by most tin pan dictators and bureaucrats from socialist countries, because it's a foreign concept to many of them. And until, of course, you look back not very long ago and you see what happened in countries. We see Central America, South America, and the Middle East, and all the way back into Europe, obviously in World War II, especially, where firearms were seized from private citizens because they knew that's the only way you can shut them up is you disarm them first.
Yeah, but here we're talking about property rights under siege. We're talking about targeting of minority communities, in this case, white Afrikaans, right? And then, I mean, but we're bringing in a very kind of Western rhetoric into this, right? But I think property rights, these are just basic things that is under siege right now in the country. So I guess what I'm asking is, do we want Americans involved in this? We have a lot of problems right now. We have a lot of things. We're taking care of the world again. Don't you feel like it feels like every single day we're dealing with another foreign policy issue? In this case,
Hold on a
I
second,
think,
Angie. Hold on a
yeah.
second, Angie. I just want to get you there. I like that. I like what you're saying, because I don't like the idea of being world police, but it's really just the president sitting down with the leader of another nation and says, hey, you got to do something about this. And
Yeah.
if you don't, we're going to just expose it.
This
It's
is
like
not a
he's putting boots on
small
the ground.
issue. Yeah,
Right.
this is not just a little small issue. Angie, I used to have that attitude, and because my organization has been the lead against this United Nations Arms Trade Treaty, because there are sovereignty questions, there are questions about would it apply to American citizens, and we were the only group really paying attention. But before I went to Geneva last year, I did have that attitude, like, as long as it doesn't apply on American soil, I don't care what they do. And then I went and heard the ridiculous claims they made. I'm like, actually, now I care
What
about
did
the
they
whole
say?
world. Well, they were talking about things like gender-based violence, and that
Huh?
was like it was this this little virtue signaling that they were all using, talking about gender-based violence and how we have to stop gender-based violence. And of course, my response was, well, how do you stop gender-based violence when it's the government, armed government agents, military and police, who are raping women in places like Ghana? And there is only one solution to that. You must allow citizens to have those firearms and shoot those people in the face when they are committing these kind of acts. And of course, that was responded to with this horrific look. And they want to change the culture in those countries. And I say, I was arguing with them, saying, that's like saying it's raining outside. Instead of getting an umbrella, you're going to try and sit down and figure out how to change the weather. You're a moron if you actually think that makes sense. It doesn't make any sense. Human nature is human nature. When there's war, when there's chaos and uncertainty in countries, and yes, bad people will do bad things, and the only solution really is they get shot in the face.
So what do you think? What do you think Trump's recourse after this meeting will be? Right? Is he going to go back to Congress and be like, "We need to cut them off. We need to stop." You know, not that he would even go to Congress. He would probably sign an executive order.
If you're asking me to predict what Donald Trump is going to do, I mean, I have a difficult enough time predicting what Donald Trump will do, both in the first term, and that is why I have gray hair. And the second, and now in the second term, which has been much better on the issues I work on. But yeah, it's very difficult even on one issue. I don't think Donald Trump knows what he's going to do 3 days from now. So he is a chaos agent. In some cases, it's great. In other cases, I'm not a big fan of it. I certainly don't want. I want some very consistent policy on Second Amendment issues, and I'm get afraid of any politician manipulating the Constitution or manipulating Second Amendment rights. And yes, Donald Trump is a politician, even though he's a different one. And so I have to treat them all the same way, which with skepticism. So, and even when they're doing the right thing, great, but often that's it's a mixed bag. I mean, we just had a reconciliation battle in Congress, and I am, by disclaimer, I'm a federal lobbyist, so, and have been for a very long time. So, and that reconciliation process, which I was not a fan of, what's one of the reasons I'm wearing Thomas Massey's debt clock. It's a lapel pin that he calls his congressional anxiety inducer. He loves to wear it in the elevators and look at people and say how much of this $35 trillion is yours.
Yeah.
He actually 36. Sorry, I was not up to date.
Now.
Yeah,
36.
that's a lot, yeah.
And this, if you can see it, it's actually counting it. And then verifies it at once a day. So it's the accurate number. Thomas Massey actually created this, invented.
How did he do that? That is, he's an incredible man.
Well, he has degrees from MIT. So that tells you how he made his money. But the battle was on adding HPA, the Hearing Protection Act, into reconciliation. And of course, like anything on a budget battle, it's a way to gather votes. They were trying to gather pro-gun votes to vote for the reconciliation bill. And normally I would counsel anybody never vote for a budget increase, which it was pretty big. But this was one particular item that's frankly one of the biggest advancements in Second Amendment rights in 60 years. And it takes suppressors, silencers, out of the National Firearms Act, so out of all that regulation, and turns them into just a normal, everyday Brady background check, just like you do for your shotgun. And now we have a companion bill that actually turns suppressors into nothing. Senator Mike Lee is the sponsor, and it's called the Shush Act, and that's what we'd prefer to do. However,
what is the Shush Act? I'm not familiar.
The Shush Act turns suppressors. I don't even though I created the acronym, I don't even remember it. It's long. It
means something. Okay.
It actually means something, but it turns suppressors into nothing. And so you could mail order your suppressor and have it delivered to your home. And we think that's the way it should be, because firearms suppressors are really just medical devices to protect your hearing. And so those of us with very poor hearing because of firearms can attest to that. The Hearing Protection Act is a half measure. It turns a suppressor instead of an NFA item, now it becomes a Title I firearm, which is just like your shotgun or your standard rifle or handgun. And so you still have to go through a Brady check when you bought it first from a dealer, but it doesn't have all these restrictions that follow it around. There are some spin-off problems with it in states that have restrictions, and I happen to live in one in Colorado. That's where I am right now, and we're dealing with the ramifications of what could happen. But that provision, the HPA, was added into the reconciliation. Now it goes over to the Senate. We'll see if we can retain it and make it actually stay. But that would be one of the biggest offensive wins for gun owners in 60, 70 years, maybe.
Well, these next 2 years are the years to do it. Do you think you'll get the votes?
Well, the Senate right now is Senator John Cornyn, who is, even though he's not the minority leader, he's still one of the leaders, certainly one of the bigger presences in the U.S. Senate, is, and in the Republican caucus, is having a primary in Texas. And one of the big issues with him in Texas is he's endorsed a lot of gun control. One of them, it was the 2022 Safer Communities Act that was basically federal red flag laws and all kinds of garbage. And that was John Cornyn made that happen. And
So I guess you're voting for Ken Paxton then.
well,
Not that you're
I,
voting, but
I don't live in Texas, but we have a federal PAC, and we're certainly considering endorsing in that race. We almost certainly will in that primary. And so, but Senator Cornyn is trying very hard to earn back gun owners' votes. And so, it's funny how when they feel the heat, they see the light. So it's not that he changed his mind; it's that he is now facing a very difficult election in front of him. In fact, even his own polling firm, the Terrence Group, showed he was 28 points behind. So now there are some wrinkles in that. I thought it was almost certainty that the President Trump would endorse Ken Paxton.
yes.
But yesterday it was announced that the GC, the general consultant who will work for Cornyn, is Chris LaCivita. And
You're
Chris LaCivita
kidding.
was the campaign manager for Donald Trump in the last election. Was
That's
the
interesting.
main driving force. So there's some real wrinkles in the political world. And this is a world that I live in. It's a very odd world, and I've been doing it for a very long time, 32 years. So what is even odder is the chairman of the board of my organization, of the National Association for Gun Rights, and the former he's the one who helped me build the group and was the founding chairman and an attorney, Marine. His name is David Warrington. And in January, David was appointed to be the chief White House counsel. So his
That's
office
quite
is
a
in the
name.
West Wing of the White House. And David is certainly, and my understanding is he's known as the gun guy in the building, and which he certainly is. David Warrington has been very aggressive on Second Amendment issues. As the chairman of our group, of course, he had to resign when he went to work for the White House, but I'm a big fan of David's, and we'll see. So far, we've gotten more pro-gun policy out of Donald Trump in 4 months of his second term than we got in 4 years of his first term. So
He's got to rush everything through. I mean, I've been talking to a few of his team and former administrative team as well. They're worried for the midterms. This may be a 2-year presidency. We don't know what happens in the midterms, and we know that Democrats are super aggressive.
Right. Historically, though, the winning president loses House seats later on. This is going to be interesting, though, because the Democrats really don't have a good leadership. We can go into this whole thing, but who are the faces of the Democrats right now? Jasmine Crockett, the guy with that Brillo hair that was trying to impeach him, the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez,
Cory Booker,
the crazy lady from Connecticut.
Al Green.
What was it? The bag lady from Connecticut, DeLauro, who
Yeah.
calls herself the ranking Rizzler.
Yeah.
I mean, Fetterman.
Fetterman is the conscience of that party at this point.
Oh, I think
ever notice that every day when his brain cells come back from the stroke, he's less and less like a regular Democrat?
Yeah. Well, he's definitely different. I am enjoying watching him. Definitely makes for some entertainment. I mean, they have a bench. The tough part is to win the Democrat nomination, you have to be pretty woke. And I don't believe that plays well with the American public now. I think the reason Donald Trump ended up winning was one reason, if I could pin it down to one in 2024, and that was he went out and assailed the woke crowd, and very publicly. And I think Americans got a little sick of the men and women's sports, and that crosses all the old Democrats' lines. No older Democrat can deal with that. So, but the question is whether
the older Democrats are voting against him, though. If you notice, a lot of the people that are really latching on to the Democrats at this point are still 70 and ups. This is where so there were reports about this, and then it winds up that the 70 at the Boomer Democrats are the ones that are still sticking by this woke or not woke because they grew up with vote blue no matter who. Younger people are leaning more. I'm not going to say conservative, but I'm going to say leaning less woke. So you're 100% right about the wokeness.
Well, actually,
it's killing the party, and they're doubling down.
The stats I've seen, and it's kind of funny because I have my son is almost 21, and so I hear from him and a lot of his friends is that there's this big gap in the young folks between men and women, that a lot of males in the young age are fed up with that world, and all the women are just still woke, and there's this massive gap. I'm like, this is not going to go well. You want to decrease population in America in 20 years? That's the way to do it.
That's it. And that's what's happening right now too. And you're right. I have read those reports as well. And think about this. The wokeness is still rampant in our media. And I want to take it back to what we were talking about before about the white South African farmers. As soon as the news broke out about of what happened with Ramaphosa and Trump, the media just pounced on this.
Yeah.
This is another reason we should be able to defend ourselves, because the manipulation of the Operation Mockingbird media. Let's go to a couple of clips here.
After a group of white South Africans were granted refugee status in the United States, a highly controversial move.
That's right. And just moments ago, President Trump repeated an unverified claim that they have been subject to genocide.
There you go. Unverified, making sure they stick these little words in here. Let's go to this MSNBC commentator.
Oh boy.
History books today from Donald J. Trump. An astonishing display from him in the White House today. Donald Trump meeting with the president of South Africa and attempting to ambush and humiliate that leader inside the Oval Office.
Oh, ambush and humiliate. No, he's attempting to bring up something that's happening in the guy's country as a concerned leader. The guy had to bring in people from his own country, and the guy's pretending nothing's going on. Let's see what the British reporters think. Here's one from the BBC.
Earlier this week, there were tense scenes in the Oval Office between US President Donald Trump and his guest, South Africa's leader, Cyril Ramaphosa. Well, Mr. Trump says Mr. Ramaphosa's government has been carrying out what he has described as genocide against South Africa's white farmers. Well, our correspondent in South Africa, Pumza Filani, went to the area which Mr. Trump says was proof of this genocide, and she fact-checked it. Let's have a look.
There you go. Fact checked it. I did watch the report. We don't need to go through the whole thing, but she cherry picks a couple of people who say, "Oh no, that's okay. Well, it's not so bad here." The fact is, we have to defend ourselves not only against a tyrannical government, but an Operation Mockingbird Western media who is trying to manipulate us into believing everything that the established globalists want us to know. The idea is you cannot, and this is it. They actually are telling us we are not allowed to say anything bad about the communist government in South Africa, no matter what they're doing.
Well, some of us are old enough to remember how the African National Congress was using burning tires as necklaces back in the late 80s and early 90s, and as a way to punish their enemies. And so they weren't terribly kind, let's put it that way. So when the communists want to take over, they tend to be a little bit rough. And so there's only one response to communism, and that's to shoot them. Be honest.
And the leftist,
sorry. I anger so
Which gun would you use to shoot them?
Yeah. Well, whenever I'm asked, why do you carry a concealed handgun, I say easy, to fight my way back to my assault rifle. So, but if they're worth shooting with a small caliber, they're worth shooting with a big caliber. So,
but let's be fair about this. The left, the Marxist left here wants to remove the ability to defend ourselves because they want to take over. They want to control every aspect of our lives. But if they fear the public a little bit, this is back in the day. Yeah, politicians were afraid of the public. They were afraid of being tarred and feathered, or they did have to deal with landowners who said, "Wait, you're being unfair to us," or regular people, workers, anybody who says, "Hey, you're being unfair to us. We want to live the way we want to live, and you can't come and infringe on our rights." It used to be they were able to do that. Nowadays, The gun grabbers want to take everything, not because they want a less violent society, but because they want the government to, let's just say, be able to put its foot on their necks, just like they do in their favorite communist countries, China or North Korea, if you will. Okay, they might be extreme examples, but look at this. How about the UK? There's an example. It took them about 100 years to take guns away completely, but they manipulated their population into thinking, oh, it would be nicer to have a nicer society, no guns. Now, crime was up after that, and of course, the government's doing whatever they want. They're screwing with their people. Again, that's probably not a nice way to put it, but the fact is they're flooding small towns with illegal immigrants or migrants that they let in. They're arresting people for saying what could be construed as insulting or hate speech on the internet. It's almost like they're a borderline communist party at this point, trying to keep their people from rising up or even speaking badly about the government or their own policies.
It's about control.
Right.
It's just
control.
No two ways about it. It's about control. You have to remind people our country was founded upon private citizens whose arms were attempted to be seized by the government. And what was their response? To kill them. That's what our response was in Lexington, Concord. And I don't believe, I anger my libertarian friends who don't want us to intervene in other countries, but I'm of the firm belief that we have to oppose the more radical forms of communism all around the world. And frankly, I'd like to ship arms to those who resist. And it's one of the reasons I'm such an opponent of this arms trade treaty. I'm like, no, I want to ship them arms. I mean, in many cases in Ghana, the lady in Ghana they don't make firearms in Ghana. The only way she's getting a firearm to defend her family is by sneaking it across the border or buying it black market.
Wow.
In other words, illegal guns. So yes, I'm in favor of illegal guns in Ghana.
Wow, that's a big statement, sir.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, no. You're right. How else would you defend themselves? And if someone comes, not even knocking on your door, but knocking down your door, what do? And that's why
restraining order. You hold up a restraining order.
Oh,
because of course the rapist is going to respect that.
It's like, here's a piece of paper, you guys. Get out of my house. Yeah, no, that doesn't work. No, look, I would love to continue this conversation with you. And thank you again, sir, for giving us so much of your time today. That was Dudley Brown. He is the president of the National Associations for Gun Rights. Thank you so much for all that you do. And we'll be watching you throughout what is going to be an incredible 2 years. And I do hope that you get your bills passed and that we're going to have more gun rights for Americans, because we do need them. And it has to go down and trickle down to the state by state as well. I just came back from New York City.
Thank you very much.
Times Square does not allow us to carry guns. So we got to do something about that too.
Oh, did you get to see that? Did you get to see that nice statue of Letitia James in the middle of Times Square?
I did. Let's take care of this country together, you guys. Thank you again, Prime Roasters. Thank you for being with us for episode 31. And we'll see you next week. Thank you so much, Chris.